What's poppin', people? It's Dante, currently going for a walk towards the Schuylkill River Trail here in Philadelphia, my favorite place to walk. And so, yeah, today I'm thinking about photography. Whoa, I just caught the leaf. Today I'm thinking about photography, more specifically the goal of photography, and kind of want to break down some of my ideas. BBQ barbecue chips. Check it out, we got some honey BBQ barbecue chips. I remember when I was a little boy, my brother and I used to say BBQ barbecue chips whenever we would go to the snack cupboard. I don't know why we used to say that. BBQ barbecue chips. We would like say it with like a British accent. And so today's thought is, what is the goal of photography? I think more interestingly, when you think about like what something is, to use via negativa and discuss what it is not, right? So what is not the goal of photography? So this is interesting to think about, and I'm just gonna freestyle my thoughts out loud here. So the goal is not to make good photographs. The goal is not to make a book. The goal is not to have a gallery show. The goal is not to be validated for your work. The goal is not to become famous. The goal is not to travel the world. The goal is to enjoy what is happening right now. You know, like, oh, I'm exiting the shade and entering the sun. I feel the concrete beneath my feet. I'll soon be on a gravel path. I'm looking at a beautiful butterfly and it's fluttering, and there's leaves that are wiggling, and there's chaos of cars moving in and out of the grocery store parking lot. You know, it's kind of funny. It's like the goal of photography is quite literally to harness its ability to provide you meaning in your mundane, everyday, moment-to-moment life. And so how do we achieve this? So I think about some very practical, fundamental steps where, you know, it's like, can we just make a photography guide for dummies book or something, and like just lay out exactly how to achieve this audacious goal of finding meaning in life? So step number one is get a pair of shorts or pants that have pockets with zippers. So I use the Lululemon License to Train. Apparently they don't sell these anymore or something, but just find a pair of shorts. It doesn't matter what shorts they are, but like a pair of shorts that has a zipper pocket like this. This might just be the most important photography equipment that you need. It's having a pair of shorts with zipper pockets. Why, you might ask? So that you can access your Ricoh GR III compact digital camera. Yes, there's such thing as the best, right? Like, think about the world of cryptocurrency, right? If you think about Bitcoin and Ethereum, obviously the best is Bitcoin, and Ethereum, I mean, there's no such thing as a second best, right? Like, Ethereum is not anything. It's like there is Ricoh and there is Fuji, right? And it's like, I don't know. I mean, obviously Ricoh is the answer, considering the compact nature of the camera and the way that it fits in your pocket. And so when it comes to the practicality of all of this, yes, having zipper pockets, having a compact camera, having a Ricoh GR III, and just like always having it with you, right? Like, this is like step one. Why? Because when you have the camera with you at all times, you'll find infinite novel ways to articulate things. And what I mean by this is, when you're looking at the world becomes a canvas. When you're looking at the world and engaging with the city, it's your playground. It's a place for you to just explore and have fun. And that's the goal, right? The goal has everything to do with finding meaning in the moment, finding meaning, you could say, in the process, but the process has nothing to do with photography. Photography has everything to do with how you engage with humanity, with openness and curiosity and eagerness for the day, right? For me, this is the only life worth living, is a life with enthusiasm, a life that has you waking up in the morning curious about what's beyond the horizon, about what's out there in the world, you know. And so as much as photography has provided me with this sort of curiosity that's had me travel all throughout the world, I find that there is infinite ways to travel within your mind, within the way that you internally perceive the world around you. And so I find that the ultimate way to approach photography is to essentially treat it like a visual diary of your day. Treat it as a way for you to simply play and remember the day. Like you're a big kid with a camera. You're just out there playing, jumping up on the curves with barefoot feet on, barefoot shoes on, right? And it's like, from this sort of playful state, you enter a flow state of recognizing the patterns in nature, in human behavior, whether you're studying the light, looking at the patterns of leaves or the textures of things, studying human behavior, returning to the same corner at the same time every single day just to see who's there, just to see what could happen and what could unfold, right? I think that's the critical thing to consider here when it comes to street photography. It's not necessarily what will unfold or what is occurring, but what could occur. And that sort of serendipitous nature of photography and life itself is out of our control, and that sort of external sort of randomness of life is what provides me with meaning. It's what provides me with this ability to go out there over and over again despite being in the same physical location, if that makes sense. Where yes, you could go and travel to a bustling market in India or somewhere far away in Africa or whatever and find infinite ways to make new pictures, but if you internally sort of return to day one each and every day, like you're a kid, like you were literally just born today, and today might just be your last day, well, aren't you going to seize each and every moment, each and every fleeting thing that comes your way, each and every feeling, whether it's the sun on your skin, the feeling below your feet, right? Like the simple pleasures in life of walking, observing, and being around people should be enough to fuel you with this sort of vitality and curiosity to continuously press the shutter, right? And so the goal is not to achieve anything. The goal is actually to just simply be in a stream of becoming, right? Just like this river ever flowing, you cannot step in the same river twice, right? You can't return to the same place at the same time and find the same exact thing. Similarly, when you're making a picture, you'll never be able to replicate it. You'll never be able to make two of the same photos. You'll be able to go out there and infinitely articulate the world in novel ways each and every day. You can't make the same picture twice. And so when you step into the stream of becoming through photography, I think it's extremely liberating. And so essentially what this means is you go slow, right? You just life flow towards you, and then you're there and you're prepared with your camera, right? You simply live your everyday life and you bring your camera for the ride, and whatever you find is just a bonus, right? And the click of the shutter is just life affirmation. You're just saying yes. You're just saying, aha, this is a life worth living, right? And be mindful here under the bridge. And so yeah, I think that we should reframe, you know, these very basic and mundane kind of like boring ideas around goal setting. You know, like, what if there was no goal, man? It's like, are you gonna still go out there and take pictures if no one sees them, right? Like, that to me is a very empowering thought. I've never seen someone sunbathe along the bridge here. That's pretty cool. Maybe I can get a photo. It's a good spot. I never seen someone sunbathing here. Yeah, I'll try to make a shot. Yeah, and so yeah, enjoy, man. Check it out. Yeah, like, I've returned to this spot I don't know how many times. Like, I've walked here pretty much every single day. I've never seen that before. Should have got closer, but c'est la vie, we're making a YouTube video. And so yeah, what is the number one trait that a photographer must possess, right? As I stand atop this treacherous little railing here, I could fall to the left and topple into the water and drown to death, right? Courage, right? But courage, I don't like to even think about as like courage, like I'm a warrior. Like, sure, like it's good to have like that spiritedness, right? Like, I'm a warrior, I'm gonna go out there into the battlefield each day. I mean, really, like, the street is kind of like a battleground in a way. You never really know, something could happen, the train could explode, the building could fall. I don't know, like, there's just like that sort of unpredictable nature of life itself that does require you to have courage to even just like step out of your door, right? Think of the COVID lockdown and people's fear of getting COVID and staying indoors and sequestering themselves inside in fear. However, courage, meaning heart, when you look at the root of the word core, meaning heart, I think it's a much more interesting way to frame this idea of courage. And my thought is the photographer with the most courage, with the most heart, shall win. And so if you think about courage, right? In order to go outside and make pictures, I mean, one must possess courage at the forefront in order to even go out and open their door and go out there into the arena of life itself, right? And so the more courage you have, the more you're going to be out there walking. And the more you're out there walking and just observing life, you know, the more you're going to see. And the more that you see, the more that you're going to photograph. And the more that you photograph, well, the more curious you're going to become. And that sort of loop of increasing your curiosity and going out there with courage is what I believe that we should think about more critically and cultivate as street photographers. For this, to me, is the goal, is to cultivate courage and curiosity, to continuously go out there and to push myself to make new photos, to explore the world, to, you know, meet new people, to, you know, I don't know, whatever. Like, it's just a really simple thought. And like, you think of the goal in terms of fitness, right? Like, what's the goal in fitness? Like, to get six-pack abs, to get really jacked, to become bigger and stronger, to get bigger muscles. But you're not necessarily attached to that outcome of you getting the six-pack, of you getting the muscles, of you becoming bigger and stronger, because you recognize how much time is required for you to achieve that goal. And so I think of this very similarly in the sort of realm of street photography, where it takes a lot of time, discipline, and consistency of going out there each and every day with repetition to eventually come up with anything, right? Like that one photo a year that you think is good. And it's interesting that to sort of like detach from the goal, to detach entirely from the outcome, the result of you making a good or bad picture, the result of you having anyone see the picture, and simply embracing the process of you doing the thing itself. And so when you're in the gym, you're not thinking in your head, I'm getting a six-pack right now, you're banging out these reps, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm getting stronger right now. No, you're just doing the thing itself for the sake of it, because you have this sort of long-term vision of you retaining and maintaining your physical body. And it's similar with photography, because when you're in the flow state of making pictures and you're doing the thing every single day with consistency, you know that over time, compounded, that you will eventually hit the mark, that you will eventually find yourself making something that is interesting, that does resonate. And so eventually, yes, you will get a six-pack, but you're gonna get it by being consistent and not dwelling on the outcome. And so yeah, there's some simple things that you can do to increase your likelihood of making a successful picture. I think about going where the action is, right? If you're a street photographer, it's very simple. Go to a bustling corner, go to a place where you can expect to see something. The main thing though with photography, I find, especially in street photography, where everything is candid, unposed, unpredictable, there's something about the spontaneity of street photography that I believe makes it the most difficult form of photography generally. Think about it. Where in a controlled environment in a studio, you have control over the lighting, you can pose the model, you can arrange things however you may. However, when you're out there in the world and you're working with natural light, you're working with candid moments, you're working with the sort of spontaneous nature of life itself, there are so many variables that are simply out of your control. The light is out of our control. We can't control the light and where it falls at what time of day, but we can anticipate and be at the right place at the right time. Considering this, right? It's now summertime, the sun is setting around 8:30, and so having a general understanding of what corners, what places in your city will have nice light at what time, then when you arrive, you at least have one of the elements in check. You have the idea that, okay, the light is going to be hitting here at this particular time. There's going to be people coming in and out of the office buildings at this particular time. I can anticipate that there will be something here. I can anticipate the potential for something to arise, but you're not attached to something actually occurring. You just use your wits, your ingenuity, and your intuition to put yourself in a position where you can increase the likelihood of you actually making something successful. And so I found that over the years of me making pictures, going out with intention does help. And so when you go out with intention, it doesn't look like, what does going out with intention not look like? you know, going out with intention doesn't look like, you know, going out there with like a checklist in your head of, today I'm only going to be taking pictures of red balloons and people with top hats, you know, like you're doing some like school project. Or like going out with intention doesn't look like, today I'm using my 23mm f2 lens and I'm only going to be photographing at f8, and I'm gonna put my photography hat on and put my vest on with 2 disposable batteries and make sure that I always say thank you. And like going out with intention, it's like having the conviction that you can essentially make any photograph of your dreams. You know, you can go out there and have the intention of making a particular kind of frame, like whether or not you are photographing the red balloons or photographing people with top hats. But in order to have that sort of conviction, one must be confident in their abilities. And so I remember early on in my journey as a photographer, I had this fascination with making a picture of a rainbow in a complex sort of layered frame. And that was something that I genuinely just had this sort of like intention of wanting to make. And I suppose there was a day where it was there was a day where it was raining in Baltimore, and it was very early on in my journey in 2016. I had my Ricoh GR II. I simply went out with my umbrella and I thought to myself, when it stops raining, there's going to be a rainbow and I'm going to make a picture of it. And essentially I did exactly that. I went out into the streets of Baltimore, camera in hand, and there you go, a perfect moment of the rainbow in the background. I'm at the perfect corner where there's lots of energy and people moving in and out of a shop. I have a stationary subject, a focal point in the corner. I've got people moving in and out. There's somebody behind the window, and all of the elements aligned, and I wound up making one of my first photographs of a rainbow. And so I did have intention behind it, but I didn't necessarily expect it, right? I didn't expect that today I'm going to find the rainbow. I kind of just had this conviction in me that if the moment will arise, I'm confident in my ability to create something. And so I did just that. Similarly in Philadelphia, here in my backyard in Logan Square's fountain, the first day of summer, the fountain turns on. I went to this location with the conviction once again of photographing a rainbow. What did I do? I spent 4 or 5 hours walking around this Logan Square fountain until the light hit at the particular time where the reflection of the water revealed a rainbow in the fountain. I then took off my shoes, my shirt, whatever, got into the fountain and made a photograph of a decisive moment where I spoke to myself out loud in the moment that there will be a man that leaps in front of the rainbow in a glorious fashion, and the rainbow will be in the background, and I'm going to create this frame. And I did just that. And so there is power in language, and there's power in mindset, and this sort of like internal sort of structure, like in your mind, body, and soul, that I believe will then carry out in the photographs you make, right? And so having the confidence, having the sort of courage and the conviction through intention, I think that we can create compelling imagery and essentially manifest anything from your dreams in reality in the photographs you make. But I do have this like problem with this notion that the photographer must have an agenda, that the photographer must have a goal or must have a checklist of things to fill in the blanks for their visual storytelling project. You know, there's something about that that just doesn't sit well with me. I find it to be quite cringe in a way, where it's like you're not that guy. Like, it's not that serious. I think a lot of the issues I have with photography these days is that a lot of photographers think they're doing something so grandiose that's going to change the world, when in reality, you know, a lot of this kind of photography is reliant on a contrived narrative or a story that the photographer is imposing on the subject that they are trying to make a picture around. And I just find it to be extremely banal and boring. And, you know, when you have this sort of like authenticity about yourself, and you have this sort of conviction in yourself, in your approach, in your process, in your practice, in your philosophy, in your way of being, you sort of just become like this mirror. And when you become a mirror, others might hate and despise, resent, or envy you. Others may admire you. There's something that happens when you have this sort of inner conviction, I've realized in my everyday life, and it's very telling about society. Like, I think ultimately society wants you in a box, you know. In terms of street photography, I think a lot of street photography is very derivative, right? All photography generally is derivative, right? We have all of the information, knowledge, history of photography, all these photo books that we can use for inspiration. And inevitably there's going to be imitation. But I think it's impossible, once again, to create the same photograph twice, despite having the sort of information or inspiration from other photographers. Like, for instance, if you were to shoot with high contrast black and white small JPEG files on your Ricoh with the exact processing setup, etc., that I use, we both will make different photographs, right? Your photograph will be a reflection of your soul. My photograph will be a reflection of my soul. We all have our own unique perception and our own unique way of engaging with humanity. And I think that's ultimately what's on display in the photographs you make. It's what you're curious about, what has you excited about life. And I think that's much more interesting to consider than, you know, some grand, like, story you're trying to tell about the world. And so the point is, when you consider the goal of photography, I believe that we should use it as a vehicle for us to cultivate authenticity and to become ourselves. And so, tying this back to this notion of the stream of becoming, I find that when I'm photographing and each and every day I'm chipping away at life and, you know, basically walking the same streets every single day in my hometown, I'm evolving internally as the world physically, externally, is sort of staying the same. And then through this sort of internal evolution, the photographs and the results of the images that I create reflect that change. And to me, I find that change is happiness, right? To change is bliss, right? To stay stagnant, to sort of always do the same thing over and over again repetitively for the rest of your life can ultimately lead to stagnation. And I can speak through my personal process of photographing in color for 7 years. You know, those 7 years of me exploring and traveling and striving to become the best photographer that I can be taught me a lot about life and photography. And what I've found is that it's very easy to make particular images when you have the ability to do so. What am I trying to say? I found that over the time of me photographing, you know, across the world, and in the sort of like documentary approach of like photographing, you know, very particular moments of people, I wound up almost just knowing way too much about how to make strong pictures. And it's like I became like too good at photography, if that makes sense. Like, and it's just kind of funny when I speak out loud. It's like it sounds like you're flexing, or like I'm flexing it, but it's just like, it's just the truth, right? And so in order to have a creative breakthrough, in order to have in order to find that spark and that sort of like feeling of happiness and joy in my process, I had to literally like destroy everything from the ground up and build a completely new foundation that is built upon my authentic interpretation of the world, rather than what I've seen throughout the history of photography being the peak and trying to strive to that peak. Because that's ultimately, you know, like what I believe the first 7 years of me practicing street photography was. It was essentially me just trying to become the best I can be, trying to sort of make my mark in terms of like you know, making like a strong work essentially. But then you know, there just came a point where I realized that's really not the goal, and that's important, and that's like a really important learning point, and that's something that I'm trying to like express candidly in however which way that I can here, so that you don't follow that line of thinking. Like, it's good to try to become the best that you can be and try to become the strongest you can be physically, creatively, whatever, but I don't think that's not the goal. And I think it's important to distinguish the difference between what the goal is and what the goal is not. And so simply put, it's funny. It's like the goal is to use photography as a way for you to not take life so seriously, to not take yourself so seriously, to not take your photography so seriously, but to use it as a way for you to play more, to return to your inner child more, to find meaning in the mundane and your everyday life, whether you're following a routine or traveling somewhere new. And I like thinking of the goal this way because it reminds me that I can return to this same view every single day, looking at to the same river that's always flowing every single day. But internally, I'm always undergoing change. I'm always in flux. I'm always in motion. And I think expressing that through photography is a really powerful way to navigate through our reality generally. And yeah, the images become a reflection of that abundantly beautiful sort of nature of inevitable change in life. And I think embracing that change and harnessing it through photography is just a beautiful way to express yourself with utmost authenticity, through your creativity, through your perspective, through your approach and way in which you engage with humanity. And yeah, that to me is what it's all about, right? Some thoughts to, yeah, what is the goal of photography? What is not the goal? Maybe that's more important for you to, you know, start asking yourself if you're starting to think more critically about why you're doing this. Yeah, welcome to the journey. We're in it together, right? We're both figuring out. I don't think I know anything, and I think that's the most wise place to be, where you're constantly evolving and changing and transforming, where you're constantly thinking of new ideas or changing your perspective or changing the way you do things, and just never staying the same. You know, I don't want to ever feel like I've done it all, seen it all, I know it all, or like I've mastered photography. But ultimately, using photography as a way for me to essentially appreciate the beauty of mundane life through returning to that sort of like inner, like sensitive state of being where everything does feel new and fresh. And I think that comes through changing yourself, right, internally, and then externally. You know, while the world may be stagnant and still, and this view might still be the same for the next 300 years, maybe the photographs that we make can preserve that internal change that we undergo. I don't know, just a random thought. Yeah, maybe we should think more about how we can make pictures for, you know, not only ourselves, but for the people that are going to be walking these streets 300 years from now. Don't think about pleasing a curator or a gallery show, or, you know, somebody who buys a book. Think more so about how you can preserve time in a frame that can maybe outlive us for generations instead. Maybe we should all just archive ourselves, and through archiving ourselves, we can create the most authentic story where we almost just live our everyday lives like it's a living work of art, and allow that to reflect in the photographs we make and leave behind. Oh, this is still on. Whoops.